So, if you're at all a hockey fan, you're probably aware that despite the horrible season the Montreal Canadiens had this year, they were fortunate enough to score themselves the first overall pick over the Arizona Coyotes in this year's NHL entry draft. Now, throughout the past few weeks, I have been looking at a ton of mock rankings, looking at the players eligible in this year's draft, and, whether it be a friend of mine's list, or an NHL analyst, or just a fellow YouTuber, nearly everyone that I've seen has had Shane Wright first overall, so we're just going to assume here that Montreal will be selecting Shane with that first overall pick in this year's draft. But with that being said, though, it does raise a couple of questions in regards to how good Shane Wright will be in the NHL, because obviously playing at that level, it's pretty hard to determine sometimes for these young players how good they're going to be coming in and how long it's going to take for them to develop into true NHL stars. So to help us do that in this video, I'll be comparing Shane Wright to who I feel will be his strongest teammate next season on the Montreal Canadiens, none other than Cole Caufield. Now, when you first look at this matchup, there does seem to be an obvious victor in Shane Wright, and, I say that for the obvious reasons. I mean, he's bigger, he's stronger, and he is projected to go number one overall, as opposed to Cole Caufield, who's a lot smaller, probably a lot weaker, and he went 15th overall in what people were saying was a weaker draft. But, I'm not going to rush to conclusions just yet, because it's actually a lot closer of a race than people are making it out to be. And that's what we're going to be arguing primarily in this video. So hopefully you guys enjoy. And quickly though, before we actually do get into it, I wanted to give a shout out to Johnny Hockey, who actually gave me the inspiration to make this video, as he recently compared Shane Wright to Nick Suzuki. And I thought that some of the stuff they said was pretty interesting, so I kind of wanted to continue it on with Cole Caufield here in this video. And, I have done comparison videos in the past, so kind of wanted to give a little bit of contrast to the playoff stuff we've been doing recently. So yeah, definitely go check him out. And back to this video, make sure you guys give me your thoughts in the comment section below, what you think about this kind of compare-contrast video. I think it's a pretty interesting one for sure. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to get to that 4K, and you do not want to miss out on future videos. So yeah, without further ado, let's actually get right into it. So before we actually do go ahead and get into the actual breakdown of this video, I just wanted to set the record straight and make one thing clear. And that being that Shane Wright's potential is off the charts, all right? The sky is the limit here. And, based off what he's already achieved in his career, I think it's fair to assume that this guy can potentially be a top 5 NHL player in his career. And I mean, keep in mind, that is the best possible case scenario, though. That's if all goes well in his career, which is pretty unlikely, but at the same time, man, with what he's already achieved, as I've said, gaining that exceptional status, not an easy thing to do, alongside just being a very dominant player in whatever league it's been in throughout the ranks. He's always been that guy. So, I mean, with that being said, man, it shouldn't be a shock that this guy has the potential to be something really special in the league. So with that being said, you're probably wondering why I'm actually making this video. Why am I comparing a guy who I've just praised so heavily with the likes of Cole Caufield, who, don't get me wrong, is still a really strong player, and I'm sure he'll have a great career in the NHL, but he doesn't have nearly the ceiling that Shane Wright does. And the main reason for that is because we're talking about a career that hasn't actually happened yet. We don't know anything about Shane Wright. We don't know what type of player he's going to be or what type of impact that he's going to have at the NHL level. Because realistically, we could sit here and talk all we want about his junior successes, giving him all this praise about exceptional status and being a dominant player in the OHL and whatnot. But at the same time, has he proved anything at the NHL level yet? No, and that's okay, honestly, because all it does is enforce the idea that it isn't fair at all for us to come here and make a decisive conclusion on what we feel this guy is going to become as an NHL player this early in his young career. I mean, he hasn't even played a game yet, right? He's only 18 years old, and he hasn't even been announced to an NHL club. That's how early it is in his career. But regardless, the reason I mentioned all of this is because I am going to be giving Shane Wright a little bit of criticism. Despite how good of a player I know he can become, there are a couple of things that have led me to speculate that Shane Wright may possibly not be to the same degree of a generational talent that we all expect. At the beginning of the year, I was really excited to watch Shane Wright at this year's World Juniors because I hadn't really seen much of him at all before. Because, I'll be honest, I don't really watch the OHL at all, and I hadn't really done that much research on the players in the draft anyways this year, so heading into it, I wasn't really sure what to expect from him. I know it was a really small sample size in just 2 games, but I was quite disappointed with the way Shane Wright did end up playing, only getting 1 secondary assist within those 2 games. Keep in mind they were against some pretty terrible opponents, so they didn't really need him to be at his best anyways if they wanted to win. But keep in mind, guys like Connor Bedard, Mason McTavish, and Cole Caufield all got upwards of 5 points in those 2 games. So to see Wright get such a underwhelming stat line was a little bit concerning for me. And it wasn't like he was just missing chances or anything. He just wasn't doing anything out there, is the best way I can put it. You know, guys like Connor Bedard and Mason McTavish, these guys, it seemed like they were out there every second shift, you know, always making an impact and trying to make a good play. But Wright, I don't know, man, it just seemed like he was a bit of a ghost out there at times. This obviously sparked a huge discussion on like Twitter and Instagram of people just being like, okay, is Wright the clear-cut number 1, or is it a lot closer than we may think? For most people, me included, we're like, okay, you know what? It was just 2 games, you know, let him go back to the OHL and prove to everyone how good he is, and, you know, he'll be the clear-cut number 1 in no time again. So he went back into the OHL and finished off his season with 94 points in 63 games played. That's 32 goals and 62 assists, which, don't get me wrong, that is a very decent stat line, well over a point per game. But here's the thing. I was doing a little bit of research on past OHL years, just looking at the stat lines of players, and it came to my surprise that a ton of familiar names of players that we all know and love in the NHL did a lot better than Shane Wright did in their respective junior years. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me because these guys were not nearly as highly touted, yet they're putting up better numbers than Shane Wright did. So I'll read you guys the list of names, and you just let me know what you think. So DeBrincat, he finished with 127 points. Dylan Strome with 129 points. Jason Robertson got 117 points. Taylor Radish got 107 points. Arthur Kaliev got 104 points, and Nick Suzuki with 100 points. I'll let you take that knowledge in however you want, but it got me thinking, is Shane Wright going to be as dominant as we all think he's going to be? Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if he isn't blowing up the OHL, then how can we expect him to blow up the NHL? That's definitely my main thing that I take away or think about, I guess, as we end off this video here. So thank you guys so much for watching. I want you guys to answer the question of the day of who do you guys think will be the more dominant player on the Montreal Canadiens? Will it be Cole Caufield or will it be Shane Wright? If I were to answer that question just based off of what I've talked about today, I'd have to still go with Shane Wright just because he's so highly touted, and I do still believe that he has the potential to be a top 5 player in the league, so that's definitely something. But regardless, man, it's going to be fun to see how these guys play off of one another. Going to be a really fun team to watch for Canadiens fans. But yeah, guys, that's all from me. Make sure you guys subscribe, like the video, and answer that question, and I'll be sure to catch you guys all in the next one. See ya.